You've been pretty strong about this, haven't you? Explain why you are so concerned about the prospect of Premier League football coming back.
First of all, good morning, everybody. I think the concern is very much that phases 2 and 3 have not been clearly laid out. There's been a lot of what I would class very simple questions that haven't been answered. So, for example, we can talk about the BAME situation, where it's government guidelines saying that it's 4 times more likely for people of colour to get the illness and twice as likely for people to have lasting illnesses, but there's no extra screening, there's no additional checks being done on any players because it costs too much money. So simple things like that are where people are asking questions and it's not being answered. And when people can't answer the questions, you start to panic and start to worry.
Are you fearful, Troy, for your health, for your family's health, for everyone's health, for your colleagues, your teammates' health? What do you feel about the health side of this?
The health side of it is very big for me. So my son has breathing difficulties. So it's a very tough one to be going into something. I agree we are getting tested a lot. I do agree that the first phase is possibly as safe as it can be. It's phases 2, then into 3. And what I feel...
Sorry, Troy, just to establish, that what is the difference between phase 1 and phases 2 and 3, which you're concerned about?
So phase 1 is the social distancing, which you just spoke about, individual training with a coach probably 20 metres away saying, do this, do that. That is no problem. That's like going to the park. There's no issues with that. Phase 2 is what is going to impact, which essentially will be next week. There'll only be 6 days worth of training. Then you go into 3 to 6 people training all together with contact. And then 6 days after that, you're going to go straight into 11v11. And again, you can't social distance with 11v11.
You were saying, Troy, that you have a son who has breathing difficulties, and obviously that would be, I guess, an underlying condition. The very last thing that you want to do is put your son's life at risk, which is a potential if you were to somehow get coronavirus from another player. We've seen it with Dresden in the German league there, that 3 of their players tested positive. It's quite likely that players are going to be testing positive, not least because, I'm sorry to say, on the front page of the Sun today, another footballer, and I never stereotype footballers about this, but you've got an England star, Callum Hudson-Odoi, breaking lockdown to have a woman in his house at 4 a.m. This is how I think infections are going to get into football. It's not going to be through the strictly controlled training. It's going to be through some players being idiots, to be honest with you. But that is going to be very frightening, I would think, for somebody like you, who is obeying all the rules because you have a very serious reason to. And that, if I was in your position, I would feel very concerned about that.
Yeah, and I think that was a question that was raised as well. So in this environment now, I can control as much as I can control. It's the uncontrollables that we eventually will have to take a risk on in terms of going back to work. And let's be clear, I'm desperate to play football. It's my job. I've got the best job in the world. But there has to be clear and safe measures for everybody, not just me. There's, you talk about Chelsea there. I saw Tammy Abraham come out and say his dad has asthma and his dad lives with him. So he has concerns. It's not just, the players at the bottom of the league who are trying to stay in the league. It's concerns right across the board. And I've had a lot of texts from players who are worried about coming out and speaking.
What would you say, Troy? Because you've never been shy of speaking your mind. It's one of the reasons I greatly admire you, actually. Not many footballers do what you do on a regular basis, speaking out about things that you care about. What would you say from all your friends in the Premier League? What is the kind of percentage, would you say, based on your own personal feedback, of people who are concerned?
I would say 98% of people are very much aware that phase 1 is very good. I would say you have a 65 to 70% of people that are concerned with phase 2. And not a lot of many. I'd probably go even higher for people that think we won't get past.
So you can't get a haircut. I'm not saying you need one, but you made this point in a quote. I said, you can't go and get a haircut on health grounds, but you can go and grapple with Raheem Sterling in a football match where you're both rolling around on top of each other on the floor in a penalty area.
Well, partly,
that to me...
hang on, but partly because hairdressers are not getting tested, twice a week.
Well, okay.
Whereas Raheem Sterling and you yourself.
But you
will
get my point. You get my point, though, is that there does seem an inconsistency here.
And that is the big thing. There is an inconsistency, and there's a bigger question to be had here morally as well. So we see a lot about care workers and key workers not getting tested, and people dying in nursing homes and things of that nature. Yet we're expected to have just short of 3,500 tests per month as football players, PPE for all the staff. And Piers, you know as well as anybody, how long will it be before that's the players' fault? And look at these prima donna footballers that are getting all of this preferential treatment when there's people dying on the street.
Well, Troy, that shouldn't be a responsibility that the players have to shoulder.
Yeah, but it will be.
But
Troy's right. We know
go
players are going to get hammered for it. They are. It won't be the owners that get hammered for that. It'll be the players who will be told, you're being selfish, you're not essential workers. Why is everyone around these football matches getting... I totally agree with you.
Well, in which case, Troy, the Premier League's got to make it absolutely clear that any resources you have access to are not blocking resources to the NHS and to care homes.
And that was what was posed. That was a question posed by another one of my colleagues. I won't say his name, but that was a question posed because, you know, as of 5-6 weeks ago, the NHS was in dire straits. It was put on Premier League footballers to make donations, which was already going to happen. But when politicians are calling us out, there's an underlying message where we are concerned that no matter what we do, we are painted to be the bad guys.
Well, I think that was a mistake for the politicians to call you out.
It's not helped, though, Troy. On the flip side, I think it's very wrong to generalise footballers. I thought when Matt Hancock demanded you all take pay cuts to do your bit and then refused himself, I was like, OK, let's get this in perspective. But it doesn't help footballers, does it, as a breed, if you like, when you have the likes of Kyle Walker, of Callum Hudson-Odoi, Jack Grealish and others who've all been caught breaking lockdown and looking like the rules don't apply for them, particularly if they've been fronting the campaigns and putting out videos telling people to stay in. What's your message to the younger footballers who might be tempted? They're bored, they're young, they're fit, they want to be out, they want to be partying. I get all that. But what is your message to them when you see this kind of thing? Because it doesn't help football at all.
No, I agree, and I do think there's a message, but it's not just for footballers. It's for generally for people not taking it seriously, because what I do see at the moment is a lot of people going out and it won't affect me mentality. But if it does affect you, then you can't expect any kind of sympathy, in my opinion. You can't then turn around and say, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that. It was a mistake." We've seen daily the amounts of trauma that this disease is causing. So we do have a responsibility as footballers, but we do also have people that are in fortunate positions that are still learning, they're still making mistakes, they're always going to make mistakes. I'm a perfect example of that. So I would like them to do a bit more research, understand what this can do and how much it can affect everybody around, and just think before you act is all I would ask.